No, thank you for having me. It's good
Oh,
to
such an
see.
honor.
No, it's good to be together, even virtually these days.
Yeah, it's been really cool that people have the time to do this, and I really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you.
How's it going? You're in New York right now?
Yeah, in Brooklyn, where I've been pretty much this whole time for the last year. It's weird. I think is it today or yesterday? It's just about exactly a year when this whole business started. So
Yeah, I remember having my master's recital like a year ago tomorrow, and that was my last
wow.
thing, you know? It's
But
like been
did
around.
you do it? Were you able to? They didn't cancel it or anything like
No, I
that.
had a whole big band and it was a whole thing. It was
Oh
pretty.
wow. Oh,
Yeah. Well, I always like to start these interviews kind of hearing about how you grew up, and especially since we're a Colorado organization, I'd love to hear about your time in Denver and maybe who some of your early influences
yeah.
were here.
Well, is where are you exactly? Are you in Denver or?
Yeah, we're in Denver.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that's where I grew up. I was born in Baltimore, but I think I was about 2 or 3 months old when my parents drove. We came to Denver, and that's really my whole all the way through a couple years of college. I was in Colorado, so um, all my wow, where to begin? uh, music has been for as long as I can remember. I was attracted to it. Even like in fourth grade. I don't know if they still do that. I hope, I'd like to think, but back when I was a kid, when you're in fourth grade, they would come around and ask if anybody wanted to play an instrument. And that's where I really started. I mean, even before that, we all had music classes. We play triangles or tambourines or sing in a choir, really from I don't know, kindergarten, even. I think it just was normal that music was part of what you were supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
But fourth grade, I entered into the whole school music program, playing clarinet in the band, and then later in high school and junior high in the orchestra. And um, I was in this outside, like a community, sort of a marching band, concert band thing.
Mhm.
Uh, was called the Denver Youth Musicians,
Cool.
and my teacher there was Jack Stevens was his name. I think his son is still around, is also plays clarinet. Um, Andy Stevens. I don't know if anyone knows him, but this is going to get a little weird because it's all these Denver memories are going to be coming back. But
Yeah.
um, it's hard to know, wow, what to tell you. I mean, I just feel real lucky that there was this, for as long as I could remember, there was this community in school or with my friends, or it was just always, I just always had a chance to be playing. Then it was a couple years later when the guitar really, I just went crazy over the guitar. My friend across the street had a guitar. Actually, bunch of people, like everywhere you look, seemed like someone had a guitar. So I would just, before I even owned one, I'd pick it up and start messing around. And
Mhm.
this is like real early 60s I'm talking about,
Uh-huh.
like surf music. And then around the time, like I was, that's kind of a big marker when the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show. That was like, it seemed like from one day to the next, everybody wanted to play the guitar after we saw that. It really was huge, life changing, not just for me, I think for a lot of people my age. And then, so then, I got more, I'm just more and more fired up. and got more and more serious about it. And toward the end of high school, I've told this story so many times, but my band director at East High, Vincent Taglavori, I was in 11th grade. It was the fall of 1967. And there's the all school talent show. And he knew me from I played clarinet in the band, but he knew I played guitar. And there was these girls were doing this dance routine along with a Wes Montgomery song. But he thought, I'd never heard of Wes Montgomery at that point. And he gave me this record and he said, do you think you could learn this song? And it'd be so much cooler if we had live music instead of them just dancing to the record. So I took the record home and I just about flipped out. It was that record, it was Bumpin' on Sunset was the song. And that it was like the gateway from whatever I'd been into in the past to just catapulted me into the future. And that was sort of the point where I realized, wait, this is something going on with this music. I better find me a teacher, because everything I'd done up to that point was really just playing with my friends and playing by ear, totally different from the clarinet. Was very, I followed all the rules and learned all the basic stuff that way, but guitar was just for fun. But that's where I realized I needed a teacher. And by some miracle, someone gave me Dale Bruning's name. So he was like, I can't even tell you how important that was for me to meet him. And it was like opening this, he had the keys to the whole world that I was looking for. So that's kind of, and then I by the end of high school, I think I really was dreaming about wanting to play for real. I went to Greeley for a couple years and still playing clarinet, but that's where I really made the decision that I just I got rid of the clarinet and just started playing guitar.
Have you ever picked up the clarinet since then?
Well, I keep, it's weird. I'll have, because I spent so much time on that thing, I played the Mozart clarinet concerto. I played I really was, but as soon as I made that decision, I just sold it right away. I just got rid of it. And but then about, I don't know when it was, I remember I'd moved to Seattle. This is like many, many years after I quit. I kind of got it in. I was having dreams about playing, I'd have a dream like, wow, you should hear me in my dreams playing that thing. Oh, it's so good. But I still have this. Anyway, I went to the Goodwill and I found a old clarinet and got it, and I played it a little bit. It's kind of weird because the muscle memory, the muscles are gone, but there's sort of this imprint that's still there. But I keep meaning to spend some time with it. But this would have been the time. This last year, I could have been a badass clarinet player but I haven't.
Well, one other thing you mentioned during that was the Ed Sullivan Show and the Beatles. And one thing I did want to ask you was if you have a favorite Beatles record and why.
Oh, wow. That I'm not sure. There's so much material there.
Yeah, like the impossible question.
But there's this memory of that Rubber Soul record when that came out. I remember maybe it's associated with these memories with, I was at my friend's house and we both had our guitars, and I remember when that record came out, and whenever I hear stuff off of that now, it's like, whoa, that's I, I like all of it, you know. But and that's what also that I think that was what was so exciting at that time, where you'd hear to hear the progression of things, you know, from one album to the next, and whether it was the Beatles or, you know, later on, I when I discovered Miles Davis or something, you'd actually hear, wow, there's this record, and then the next record would come out, and you'd hear the whole, you'd actually be witnessing this kind of uh, history really being moved moved forward. So and the, you know, the Beatles, of course, like every record that came out, it was like, whoa, what are they gonna, you know, it'd blow your mind what they would come up with next. So,
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's so cool you can hear. I mean, obviously, people always talk about how your music at the same time combines all of these different influences and genres and also kind of transcends it and becomes its own sound. And I'm curious, maybe jumping to your role as a composer, how you maybe approach writing and how you approach it for different musical settings. Um, Obviously, you've made so many records that aren't the traditional jazz setting, like the quartet album or having like a bassless trio. How does your role shift? How does the compositional process change
uh,
situations?
yeah, that's such a, oh boy, how does that's like the thing about writing music. It's, I think it's the same as when I'm playing, you know, and I'm trying to always be at that place when I'm playing, no matter what the circumstances or what the song is or how many times I've played the song or whatever group. My hope is that I'm at this place where I'm not sure what's going to happen next. You know, I like to be in a state of being off the edge of what I know, right? And I think that was always happening with my guitar playing, like getting together with my friends at the beginning. That's what it felt like let's just try this and try that, and that was natural, that became natural. And so that's what I strive for in my playing,
Mhm.
and it's also what I'm striving for in the writing. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is the writing came later, and then it's such a, it's like a, I guess at first I had a lot of blocks in my mind, you know, like when you're playing, you have to just deal with the moment, and you know, if you make a mistake, you have to make it sound right or just move on from it or whatever. But with writing, you have, there's that, first of all, trying to get, I still use a pencil and paper, you know, and trying to get what I'm hearing to come out on the paper. There's a struggle there.
Mhm.
But then there's also the, for me, what the danger is I'm constantly being blocked by my own self criticism. You know, I'll write something and then it'll be like, oh, that's no good. And instead of just letting it, so that, I mean, over, I'm talking about, this is like a process of over, I don't know when I started to really try to write stuff, 45 years, you know, in school or whatever. And then when I started writing things that I felt like were my own music, it's been this, at this point, it's like I just try to let it come out and not think about what it is or whether it's good or bad, or just try to get in this zone where there's melody and harmony and whatever, and get it down
Mhm.
and just let it go. And then then I can come back later and sift through it and see if I can judge it later. You got to get it out first before you judge, or it'll never get there.
Do you have any advice for, when you were starting out and you would get stuck and you would, have that self-critic come out? Did you have any mechanisms for getting back to work, or how to overcome that? Or was it
uh,
a process over time?
yeah, it's just it's like just try to remember that that's not, you don't know. You're not the one that knows whether it's good or bad, or at that moment you don't. You have to just try to push through and let it out. I don't, but I'm saying this is something I've struggled with for a long, long time. And now it's kind of absurd. Now I've got piles and piles of music, like especially during this last year.
Mhm.
I wake up and I let it come out, and it's like I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with all this stuff, but now it's almost the other I think I should maybe be more critical, so I don't just keep accumulating all this stuff. But
Well,
I don't really have, all I know is just you can't. Same thing when you're playing, like when I think of all the stuff that goes, it's so easy to get, again, during this time when I think everyone is spending more time in their own head. I really, it's accentuating that problem. Like, to be able to play with other people, just to have another person there to play with, that'll help you. Just look at that person when you're playing and try to just forget about what you're doing, concentrate on what they're doing.
mhm.
um, but it's hard when we're by ourselves all the time now.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about the past year and how it has it affected your artistry. How have there been any positives? Like how, obviously, I mean, gigs are gone and it's a crazy time, but has how has it affected you as an artist overall? Like, have you had any
Well,
revelation?
I mean, what was right, uh, from the very beginning, I found myself, like, even the first day, like, suddenly, okay, everything, or not everything, was can't I was supposed to, whatever that day was, I was supposed to be leaving for I'm supposed to go to Europe or something, and everything just shut down. And so immediately I just grabbed my guitar, and that was amazing. Like, wow, so I just sat there and just played, and I didn't have anything there wasn't like something I needed to finish or get, it was like, whatever I felt like playing, I could play it. And that was kind of an awesome feeling. Like, wow, I'm gonna just play this song all day, and I don't even have to, nobody's gonna, I hadn't felt like that in a long time. I guess many, many years ago, when I was back in Denver, just sitting there practicing or something. But there was something reassuring about the fact that, wow, I still love playing this instrument after all this time. And that's kind of what I've been doing every day. It's like, it's getting a little weird, the pattern, but I just wake up and have some coffee, and then I just start playing, and it helps me. I mean, music has always been a savior for me, so I've been really lucky with that.
Yeah, I had a similar experience too, and just being able to play for myself, and that there's something beautiful about that. And
Yeah, yeah, there wasn't any deadline, or there wasn't any pressure of, like, well, then there started to be a few, I've been doing some streaming things or whatever, and then there'd be some, oh God, and then all the kind of flipping out, trying to figure out how to use a computer. Like, oh my, I can't even tell, because I I haven't really used it much. Like right now I'm using an iPad, and I had some traumatic experiences early on just trying to doing some live streaming thing, and that kind of stuff was really rough
Mhm.
and weird, sitting right where I'm sitting now. I can feel all y'all there now, I can see, but sometimes it's like you're just sitting there and you think there's people maybe you're listening, but you're just all by yourself. It's weird.
Yeah.
But
Um,
but not have, like what I was gonna say, there's a lot of times when there's no I don't have a debt. Seem like the last 30, 40 years there's always some deadline. I got to get this ready by this, or I have to get this. And this was just, well, just stick with one tune for a week and see what happens.
mhm. Another question that I guess we kind of talked about from a composing perspective, but kind of getting back to adapting to different musical situations, like bassless or something where like there's no drummer. Like how do you adapt while still maintaining your voice as an artist when you are thrown into these different musical situations?
Well, yeah, that's what people ask, like, well, how do you play with this and then that? And but it's I don't really change what I do. I'm using the same instincts.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I know what's around me might change a lot, but I'm pretty much the same guy,
Mhm.
and just trying to deal with what it is, and try to understand as best as I can what the music is that I'm playing. I guess that, over years, I hopefully the depth of what I can understand maybe is, there's a little more clarity. I don't know. But it's just about listening. Yeah, I just read this. I've read it actually a couple times, but I read it again yesterday. I would recommend this interview with Carla Bley I don't know if you know, have you ever seen these interviews that Ethan Iverson does?
Mhm.
Do the Math. And there's one with Carla Bley, and she says these, I mean, it's just incredible. First of all, just the history, the life she's had, and the people she's been in contact with, but her take on things is so um, heavy for me. But there's a couple things she said, and I don't have the exact quote, but she talks about, like, being good at music. How do you, like, skill doesn't necessarily have that much to do with being with your musicianship. She was talking about, there's people that are very musical, that it's not about having technique, or it can be, she said it can go both ways. She said there's people that are musical that have extraordinary technique, and there's people that are musical that have no technique. And the other way around, you can have a lot of technique and not be musical, or no technique. But it was just like making the distinction that being musical is maybe, she was saying it has more to do with listening,
Mhm.
that the best musicians she knows are the ones that listen the hardest in whatever the environment that they're in.
Mhm.
um, and anyway, I would recommend that interview. It's really long, but it goes from, when she was first in New York, uh, working as like a cigarette girl, or what do they call, and Count Basie's playing, and just incredible experiences that she's had and stuff.
Mhm.
And as a woman, in that world, and just I don't know, and I love all her music anyway. So that, and I know a lot of the people that uh, well, I've gotten to play with her myself, but I mean, it's there's just so much history there that I was relating to. But there's a lot of wisdom anyway. Something that just helped me to think about that,
Mhm.
like when I'm trying to, of course, I'm trying to play as good as I can. I'm trying to get better, but it's like, man, but there's still some way you can make music without being super virtuoso or whatever.
Yeah, like if you're listening, the music will kind of tell you what it needs. And you just,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I want to check that article out. I'm gonna look it up after this. Thank you for the recommendation. Has there been anything else you've been reading or listening to, like jazz or otherwise, that you think people should be checking out right now?
Um, oh boy, that's I mean, it's weird. List. That's the other thing. This is more like sounds like I'm having a therapy session but I've accumulated all this stuff, right? If you saw this room, it's just packed with books,
Mhm.
and then I've got like walls of CDs. Just it's absurd. Like it's ridiculous. And in the past, it's like, I'm busy, I'm traveling, but I like the idea that I've got all that stuff there because someday I'm gonna get home. I have plenty of time, and I'm just gonna sit back and listen to all that stuff. So
Mhm.
here it is. It's like a year later. I don't know. Stuff is just sitting there, just like it always was. All these books are here. I'm sort of reassessing what my. It's not that I'm not listening to anything, but um, I think anyway, you hear what I'm saying. I'm just like, come on, this is my chance. I could have learned how to play the clarinet. I should have written 10 string quartets, and I should have read all those books. I still never read Moby Dick. I started it again for the 400th time, but I only got a couple pages. I can't read that book. I don't know. But and then I find myself going back and listening to things that I heard, back when I was talking about growing up in Denver. Some of those first records, I've listened, like just this morning, I listened to a Wes Montgomery thing that I heard way back then, or I've been listening to, as far as like guitar stuff, I keep going back to Charlie Christian. That's like somebody that it's like that stuff just continues to, I always liked it, when I first discovered it 50 years ago or or more. But it's, well, like so much music, the more you hear it, it's like these layers keep peeling away, and it just keeps getting like more and more. It sounds more and more new or radical every time I hear it. And he's somebody that happens to me with. Like, I'm just thinking, how I've been playing the guitar all this time, and I'm hearing him,
Mhm.
and it's I just what is going on? What is he playing? It's just like it becomes more and more mysterious or something. So that I love that.
I can totally relate about, wanting to be productive and wanting to check out new stuff. And like all I found myself doing this past year was listening to music I've always loved, and that maybe there's
Yeah,
comfort that comes with that or some, I don't know. Yeah, I guess we're
yeah.
having a therapy session.
No, but then that's what's so incredible about music, because it's not like you don't just listen to it once and you got it all figured out. You just, or a song. I can play the same song just forever, and it's just, it keeps on revealing more, it's like it's all this stuff, it's alive, all this stuff. It's like it doesn't just stay still.
Yeah. One thing I always like to ask, because CCJA is a youth jazz organization, I always like to ask if you have any advice for like the young musician who's excited about jazz and wants to become an improviser or maybe a composer. Do you have any advice? Was there any advice you got that stuck with you that you would want to pass on?
um well, I mean, the main thing I say is, oh boy, there's a number of things, I guess. Like it just, I think everybody knows, if you love it, that's the main thing.
Mhm.
If you love music, it's always going to tell you what to do. Like, just listen to your there were times when I think I was afraid to even admit that certain things that I liked, or something, like I was trying to be cool, or especially when I got into jazz, right? I was like, there was a time when I shut out the Beatles, or I said, oh, that's like kid stuff or whatever. I want to play, but it wasn't really being honest with where I was from. And that's what I actually, the more I checked out the jazz people that I loved, I think the lesson I got from them was that I should, the people that I were my biggest heroes, I realized, wait a minute, they're being true to what their experience, their life experience was, and that's why it's so strong. Like, Sonny Rollins, or he would be playing songs that he heard in a movie or a show, or from the islands, his heritage or whatever, eh, and then I didn't grow up there with that. I grew up in Denver, and I heard the Beatles, and I da da da.
Mhm.
So when I let that come back in, then I think it's important just to be honest with, stick with what you, don't be afraid to show what you love. And then that's how your voice, your individual voice will come out. I think everyone has their own sound. People say, how do you get your own sound? Well, it's just, I'm just trying to show you what I like, basically.
Mhm.
But then also, I would say another thing that I think, it's something, it's another one of these ongoing struggle things that I would say for someone that's young, that still have, it's something that's always going to be there, is the weight of what we don't know, that we're trying to get to. We can't let that crush us, like, uh I used to think that early on, I thought, oh yeah, if I practice real hard and I do this and I do that, if I do this and if I accomplish this, then suddenly everything's going to be just, I'm going to be just ecstatically playing beautiful music all the time, and it's just going to be amazing. But it doesn't really work that way. I mean, of course, I guess hopefully you'll have a few moments of ecstasy playing, but you have to be comfortable with the idea that whatever you play, there's always something, out. You got to be in that, just the process of doing it has to give you the joy. You can't, it's not like you're going to figure it all out. You're never going to figure it out. And
Right.
anybody that says they've got it all together, I'm sorry, they very likely don't.
Mhm. That's all advice I needed to hear. Good reminder.
No, it's no, but because it and it can be, I've seen it, you know, it's fragile, like we're trying to play, and I've been really lucky, like so many moments when I thought, oh man, I can't do this. And someone like a teacher or someone will just, oh man, you sound really good, or something, just a little pat on the back.
Mhm.
And it can go the other way too. I had a couple teachers that I wish I could punch them out now, like, no, like I'm thinking of, I don't know. They can really, there's so much power when we're in this sort of fragile state. When I had a class where we were supposed to write the assignment was to write something using modes or something, right? And I know what the guy meant. I did understand. He wanted us to write "so what" or something.
Mm.
That's what he was. I understood that, but I wrote something. I followed all the rules, that he said, but it was more like a folk song kind of a thing. And he just wasted. I brought this to the class, and he says, "Man, what is this? This sounds like some stupid folk music." And that just crushed me. I thought, um, you know, oh, I just felt like, oh, I'm no good. I can't write. So I didn't write anything for, I don't know, that kind of closed me down. Oh yeah, I guess I shouldn't really be writing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, man, if he had just said, wow, that's interesting or something. Wow, you made it into a folk song or something. Just show a little enthusiasm. Come on there. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, but mostly I've had these more positive, you know, I'm just saying that it's dangerous. We gotta be strong enough ourselves, but I know it's super fragile.
Yeah, I think that's a good reminder for me too, as a teacher of young, young, young. Like I teach 5-year-olds piano, and
Oh, wow.
it's like you got to make sure that everything you say, especially when they're just getting into it, is encouraging, and you embrace the musician that they are, not like try to make them into the musician that you want them to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard because it's hard work. You got to push them, but then it's always this balancing thing, I guess.
Mhm. I think I had one more question before we open it up, but I can't remember what it was. Oh, I was gonna ask if you have any projects in the works right now, or any like dream projects that you've always wanted to do, like maybe
Mm,
not planned, but that you hope to do in the future.
Well, not quite. I mean, I'm just dying to get back with trying to get back to some of the things I was with the groups that I was already playing. So many things were canceled and now they're moved a year later, and just to get out and start playing is sort of the main thing. But then like I told you, I'm filling these notebooks with this stuff, and a lot of it I'm feeling like maybe I could orchestrate it for some sort of larger group or something, but that's sort of in the back of my mind. There's a lot of material that I've written that I don't quite know exactly what it would be, but just to hear someone else play. That's the other thing about writing. For me, writing, it's not finished until I hear their voice playing it. That's been one of the hardest things because I'm just hearing myself
Right.
play this stuff all the time. And the moment someone else, that's what I love. That's what it's so inspiring. They'll surprise you with I wrote this melody, but then you hear their voice with it, and maybe they'll just have a completely different take on it. And that's what I live for, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think I speak for all 124 of us when we say that we're excited to hear.
Mhm.
those compositions to life.
Well,
I think maybe I'll look in the chat and I've had actually a few people beforehand and now asking about when you played with Paul Motion and what you learned from him.
yeah, that's huge there because it's wild. Denver again, that's where within a few months of when I told you that I found Dale Bruning as a teacher, around the same time, I went and I bought uh, my first Downbeat magazine, and it had Charles Lloyd was on the cover. So it was like whatever year that was. It was like 68 or something like that. And then Charles Lloyd is coming to Denver to play. I don't think that place is there anymore. It was the Denver Auditorium Theater, or the Denver, like downtown there was the Denver Coliseum. Like that's where I saw Bob Dylan in 1960, and that's where I saw Cream and all this stuff. And then there was the Denver Auditorium. They were kind of connected somehow, but it was just more like a theater. Anyway, Charles Lloyd came there, and so it was January of 1969 that I went to see Charles Lloyd play, and Keith Jarrett was playing piano, and Ron McClure was playing bass, and Paul Motion was playing drums. So it's like, like, wow, how did that happen? That's one of the very first concerts I hear, and my mind is just, again, it was life-changing hearing that music. Nobody knew who Keith Jarrett was. I never heard of any of these people anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so right away, then the next day I went and bought Keith Jarrett's first, I think it's his first trio record with Paul and Charlie Hayden. That was the first notes I heard Charlie Hayden play. And so all that, that music was like, I don't know what the word is for what that does to you at that moment in my life, when I'm 17 years old, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought that some years later I would pick up the phone and, hey, it's Paul Motion. Do you want to come over and play? I was like, what? Are you gotta be kidding me? So, I mean, that it's just huge what my whole thing with him, we played starting in 1981 until he passed away in 2011. So he was just gigantically important for me. I just don't know how to, we, as a friend and as a teacher and brother and uncle, and it was like everything.
Yeah. One other question, I guess, kind of thinking in Denver stuff. Someone asked how you met Ron Miles and
Oh yeah,
that all came about, because that's
yeah,
such.
that was amazing. That I can't believe that, because um, he had asked me to play on an, I don't know what year this was. It must, I guess, really early 90s or something. It doesn't matter. He sent a cassette actually to my manager asking so I didn't talk to him, or I had no real interaction with him at all. It went through this manager, and then the manager sent me this cassette, and he was asking if I could play on an album. And so I listened to the cassette, and it was like, oh wow, that sounds, and I heard his sound, and I heard it was like music was beautiful, like I remembered it, right? But I couldn't do I wasn't available to do the record. So, but the cassette, I just put it up on my shelf. And then it was quite a long time later. I don't know, a year later at least, or maybe even more. I picture this exactly. Like I was driving up, I know where I was. I was in Seattle and I was driving up this hill, and on the radio came this song, and it was actually a Fred Hess record. Is that his name?
Mhm.
Uh, and it was I'm sorry, it was a Duke Ellington song. And then this trumpet comes in, and I was like, but I didn't know. All I heard, I'm just listening to the radio and I hear the saxophone, and then I hear the trumpet come in. I said, that's gotta be that has to be that guy, you know. I knew it was him. And then they came on and they announced it, and yeah, that was Fred and that da, da, da. So then I went home and I said, man, I gotta call him up, because I had never talked to him. So I can still see on the cassette, I bet I have it somewhere. He had his phone number written on the cassette. So I just called him out of the blue. I just called him, hey, I just heard you on the radio, and I just, sorry we couldn't do that thing. And we ended up talking for a long time, and then we discovered, oh wow, you went to East High School too. We both went to the same high school, and he knew Dale Bruning, and a lot of the same people, and we just had this really great talk. And from that conversation, he invited me to come to Denver to play, and we ended up doing it was another friend of mine from way back. Actually, it was the friend, when you asked about, this is so weird, when you asked about the Beatles,
Uh-huh.
this Rubber Soul record that I was sitting in the guy's bedroom, Carl Seidel was his name. He lived in Park Hill, and we got Rubber Soul, and we're sitting there listening to that record when I was in 8th grade or whatever it was.
Mhm.
Anyway, he's the guy. So when Ron asked if I would do a concert, Carl set it up for us and got the Ogden Theater. Carl arranged the whole concert. And so Ron invited me to come. I come to Denver. I didn't even know what he looked like or anything. And then it was with Rudy Royston, who now I'm playing with Rudy all the time. And Artie Moore was playing bass. And it was just sort of this instant. That was it. We've been playing ever since, all the time. And that was like, I think it was 93, maybe, when that concert was.
Mhm. That's so cool to hear about. We actually did an interview with Ron back in, like, I think it was November, as part of this series, and
Oh, cool.
anyone wants to check that out, that's available. He told like a shorter version of that story, but it was cool to hear your take of it.
Yeah, it just, I don't, it's one of those things, like so many of the people I play with, I know, like even before we play, I can tell that something's gonna happen. I knew that when we just talked on the phone, and I knew it was gonna connect up. And
Mhm.
yeah, I feel so lucky. He's like he's my hero, it's so awesome that he's around Denver.
Oh yeah, we're lucky to have him here for sure. A couple people wanted to hear about studying with Johnny Smith in Greeley.
Oh yeah. Um, oh man, that's one of those things that I wish. I'm just ashamed of myself when I think of that he was around. That was incredible. So he was, at the time, when I met Dale Bruning, Dale was still playing bass. He played bass and guitar, and he would play with Johnny Smith every week. They played it was a bar downtown, Shainer's or something like that. And first of all, I'm just like, what was I thinking? Why didn't I go? I never went down there to I think he played there every Saturday night, and I never went. So this is a kind of a confession. I mean, I'm just absolutely ashamed of myself to tell you this, but at the time I thought, I had met Dale, and Dale turned me on to all this, like, Jim Hall and Sonny Rollins and Thelonious Monk and Miles, and I was like, I wanted to be a hip bebop guy, jazz, whatever. And at the time, Johnny Smith seemed like kind of this old fuddy-duddy, it's kind of corny or something.
Uh-huh.
And I'm I'm sorry to say that, but that's what I felt at the time. And I didn't make the effort to go see him.
Mhm.
But then I'm going to school in Greeley, and there was no, I was still playing clarinet, and I played guitar in the second jazz band, but there wasn't any guitar teacher or anything. But then uh, Daryl Goes, who was the drummer that played with, he was the jazz band director, and he played drums with Johnny Smith, and he got Johnny to come to teach a guitar class.
Mhm.
And so that's where, oh wow, I signed up for the class, and there were like about 5 kids in the class to begin with. And I think it was like, I mean, I feel bad for him when I think they were all, I think, they just, I was kind of the only one that was serious about playing. I think most of the other kids were like, oh wow, guitar, I think maybe I can learn a couple chords or something. And there's Johnny Smith.
Mhm.
But so within just a couple weeks, everybody just, oh, we don't want to learn this. They all just left, and it was just me and Johnny Smith.
Wow.
So I got to have this kind of private thing with him, and he was so, again, talking about encouraging, and then just, I just could, if I could just go back and do it again, like, why was I? And there was so much stuff with him that I took for granted at the time that later I've come to appreciate so much more. Like, there were all these arrangements of songs that had written out. They were like on these mimeograph. We didn't have photocopies, and they were like this blue sort of mimeograph sheets or something with whatever. He'd have Misty written out, or he'd have Black is the Color of My True Love's Hair, something all in his handwriting. And those sheets were just all over the place. I just took them for granted, and I don't even have any of them anymore.
Mhm.
But anyway, he was awesome. And then over the years, it's like the more I've learned about him and heard more and more of his music, he's another one of those, like, wow, he's like just one of a kind, extraordinary. It's like, he kind of, a lot of things I try to do, he was doing them 70 years ago. Just as far as playing all kinds of music, and I just wish I had known then what I know now, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Wow. This has been so inspiring. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Do you have any last thoughts or anything you want to mention
Oh
before
boy,
today?
I don't know. I hope everybody can keep playing, because music really. Oh yeah, I have my shirt on, I think. Wait, that has my motto on it.
Oh, cool.
I wasn't even thinking about this. Can you see that? Oh no. Oh, it's backwards though.
Music is good.
Um, that's about the main, that's all you need to know too, because that's, I'm positive this is true. There's no doubt in my mind. There's a lot of stuff that it's like, what is going on, you know? But this, this is, I don't, this, I'm sure of this. So just try to play and let's just all try to keep playing, I guess, you know?
I totally agree. That should be everyone's motto. Music is good. That's amazing. I just wanted to thank you again, Bill. This has been really, really inspiring for me, and I know for all of us tonight.
No, thank you all for listening, you know, it's great.
Yeah.